slowing down the onset of age-related brain diseases, but also slowing down the progress of age-related brain diseases. Obviously, we talked about the ability to pay attention. You know, we need to teach children mindfulness so that they can sit in a classroom and pay attention to what is being taught. That we can sit on when we're in virtual meetings or we're doing online learning, which is going to be a particular challenge that we're going to face now. How do we pay attention where there's a temptation to swap between screens? And I'm sure nobody's doing that right now. So developing mindfulness develops our facility to control our minds. Okay, mental control comes through mindfulness practice. And what you might be starting to see now is this is not easy. It's not going to just happen. We actually have to build that capacity. We have to go to the gym to build the capacity to have that mental control. We talk about metacognitive awareness. This is about awareness of our awareness. This is about not being so caught in ourselves and in our instinctive biases, but being able to step above ourselves and be the witness of our thoughts, be the witness of our behavior in a compassionate, non-judgmental way. And we're going to talk more about that now. Learning and memory is facilitated. The hippocampus, which is the seat of long-term memory in the brain, has been seen to grow, literally grow in long-term meditators, people that practice mindfulness. Your ability to memorize dramatically improves. And not only long-term memory, but short-term memory. Okay, short-term memory, we're going to talk about using the prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of short-term memory. So the more you're using your prefrontal cortex, which is the part that you're really activating when you are practicing mindfulness, your ability to keep things in the short term as well as the long term both improves. The amygdala shrinks in people that practice mindfulness. So that reactive, survival mechanism that is not really required as much in the 21st century as it was when we were wandering around the savannah is managed. So we don't become overreactive, over-responsive in a threat and survival way. We rather are able to use our conscious thinking and rational brains in order to manage our responses and our reactions. Our ability to have self-discipline and self-control is dramatically increased. The ventrolateral prefrontal cortex hangs out right here on the left and right sides of our prefrontal cortex. This is the particular part that is activated and stimulated when we pay attention. So the more we practice mindfulness, the more we develop self-control and self-discipline. And the medial prefrontal cortex, the part to do with compassion, the part to do with empathy, again, so critical for us as therapists or as coaches, is definitely grown and facilitated through the use of mindfulness techniques. So that's a small overview of the neuroscience behind mindfulness. And now I want to start going into how do we apply it and how do we practice it. Anything that you think I should just respond to, Anne, before we start shifting the conversation?
Yeah, just kind of like dropping in because there were a couple of conversations. So Glenn Pierce calls it the state, and then Isabel was asking what is the interaction between mindfulness and embodiment, because flow and muscle memory leads to embodiment. So how would that body react?
So Glenn, I'm seeing your question here. That we talk about mindfulness as a state that can become a trait. So the more we practice it, it will become a part of way of our being. But actually doing mindfulness meditation and some of the other practices I'm going to show you actually take you to a state of mindfulness. And mindfulness and embodiment, again, and we could have another 3-hour conversation around that, but the impact of our whole physiology, the cells, the way our cells function, the neuroendocrine system, the hormones, everything, and how do we embody that whole way of being? Sure, we can go into a lot of detail about that whole mind-body connection there as well.
Okay, just one quick question was on visualization. How would that also help in mindfulness?
Definitely, and visualization is a mindfulness practice. It's a form of mindfulness. Now, just remember, even thinking about something exercises that part of your brain. So if you close your eyes right now and think about brushing your teeth, okay, think about brushing your teeth. Now think about brushing your teeth with your other hand. Okay, and you can see how awkward that feels and how difficult that feels, because you're actually exercising the neural pathways to do with brushing your teeth with the other hand. So even that visualization, mental rehearsal, a lot of my athletes that I coach, we do a lot of mental rehearsal where we practice, go over and over in your mind the activity, so that you're actually creating the muscle memory in terms of your neural pathways. Okay, good. Some lovely questions coming up here. So let's move on, because still got quite a lot to share. We're looking at the mindfulness model now, which engages intentionality, consciousness, and meditation. So this is the model that I've crafted to engage with Eastern and Western perspectives of mindfulness, to engage the sacred and the secular, the practical and the academic. We're engaging all the aspects of mindfulness into this model. And we're going to start with meditation, because the meditation is really essentially the gym that we go to. Okay, and what I've just loved about this conference is that those of you who came on earlier, is that before every session, Anne has created this opportunity for people to experience mindfulness meditation practices. So I'm not going to go into an actual practice now in today's session. I'll just mention a few aspects that we can just connect to. What does the meditation do for us? So my definition of meditation is the process of bringing attention to moment experiences. Okay, and just remember, mindfulness is all about being non-judgmental. So what happens when, and Jackie was saying that in the practice this morning, she was saying, don't worry if your mind wanders, that's okay. Okay, again, and like I said, we don't want to be on our emails, we don't want to be splitting our attention. But what happens is, when we go do mindfulness meditation, our mind wanders, because that's what minds do. Okay, and a lot of people misunderstand this, especially in the Western world. People become scared of this meditation thing. It's not that you're going to have to go and light incense and sit cross-legged in the Himalayas while you chant, although that is a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. But it's very easy for us to practice mindfulness meditation at any stage in our day, in any stage of, no matter how stressful and intense our lives are, we can take these meditative moments. So obviously, it's a really powerful skill and practice to build a mindfulness meditation routine. Now, there are so many ways of doing this mindful meditation. It's merely a facet of, or a fact of bringing your attention to the present moment, okay, in whatever way that you can. So an actual defined mindfulness practice, like we're doing before all the sessions in this conference, we're doing visualizations, we're doing body scan meditations. That's more or less what Jackie was doing today, getting us to pay attention to different aspects of our body. There are breath awareness meditations. My very favorite, loving kindness meditations, where we learn about having loving kindness for ourselves and loving kindness for others. Because remember, whenever we're practicing this meditation, it's the exercise for our brain, and we as coaches need to practice self-compassion as well as compassion for others. Walking meditation. Yesterday, your mindfulness practitioner took us through a walking meditation. So you can do your meditations while you go for a run. You can do your meditations while you're driving in your car. Please just don't close your eyes, okay? Keep your eyes open. You can become mindful when you're walking into your office. And queues have become my new favorite thing. I used to get distressed about queuing because I had better things to do. Now when I'm in a queue, I listen to the sounds, pay attention to the colors, hear the voices around me, just become mindful. And what you're actually doing at every opportunity that you take to become present, you actually are doing a form of meditation. Obviously, again, I'm going to encourage you to go and do the actual ritual, the practice of meditation. There are hundreds of free meditation apps. You can go onto YouTube, you can go onto Google free mindfulness audios, you can Google loving kindness, whatever I'm struggling with. at any moment in time, whether it's uncertainty or whether it's resentment or whether it's fear, whatever it is I'm struggling with, I'll go and Google mindfulness meditation on resentment. And then I can go and be taken through a guided practice. So I hope you're seeing that there's many, many different ways that you can actually create a meditative state in your brain. Again, I really like you to create a routine, a ritual, have just 10 minutes of focused mindfulness meditation a day. And by the way, remember, you don't have to do it well, okay? If your mind wanders, the mere fact that you've noticed your mind wanders is part of the meditation practice, okay? So there's 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation a day. Research, I've got profound research that shows that it can drop your cortisol levels by up to 50%. And never has there been a greater, a more important time for us to practice this meditation. Again, you're saying, I'm too stressed, I'm too anxious, I'm too worried, but you've got a choice. Either you can stay stressed and anxious and worried, or you can engage with the practice. Don't worry how difficult it is. You don't have to do it perfectly. But you owe it to yourselves, you owe it to your mind, and you owe it to your body. So mindfulness meditation is really, for me, the foundation. It's about how do we create a practice, how do we create a way of being to be present, to focus and concentrate our mind so that we are exercising that aspect of our mind. Okay, sorry, I'm just looking at the chat here, and Matthew says, just realize that mindfulness moments is when I'm running. Absolutely. Whatever activity it is you're doing, you can bring consciousness and mindfulness to that activity. And in fact, for me, the more data there is around me, the more I'm actually able to be focused. So don't worry that you have to have a silent room. You don't. Matthew, while you're running, you've got the sound of your feet that you can pay attention to, the feeling of the air as it passes through over your body, the sounds of nature around you, the colors, the sky. There's so much that you can actually bring your attention to. It's almost as though the more data there is, the easier it is to focus our attention. Okay, and Sukrita is saying about breathing, and I mean, again, we can talk about that value. There's so much evidence about the benefits of breath work, of breathing, and allowing ourselves to use our breath as a means to center ourselves and engage in a mindfulness state. Okay, good. And so moving on, because we've still got a few more aspects to consider. The second aspect of my mindfulness model is intentionality. And intentionality is the purposeful and focused focus of thinking, emotion, and action. So this is where possibly what is considered a more Western aspect. Your meditation is often connected with more Eastern spiritual traditions or thinking. The intentionality it's a word that I came up with to describe a more intentional or focused or purposeful way of leveraging mindfulness. So my favorite author here is and speaker is a Harvard University professor of psychology called Ellen Langer. Sorry, I think she's New York University. Anyway, Ellen Langer has written a book called Mindfulness. Okay, it's a fantastic book. She does not mention meditation. What she talks about is how do we pay attention to novel experiences? Because what we're doing is we're walking around the world, seeing the world in the same old way, reacting in the same old way. She shows us how to pay attention to the world in a way that sees the world as different, sees the world as unique, and shifts our processing and thinking about the world. She helps us understand how we need to be sensitive to context, how we need to reappraise how we see things, that we can become and respond to things in a different way. So again, I can talk for hours about Ellen Langer. One of my favorite pieces of research that she does is she talks about, she goes to these trainers that are training dolphins. Now, for all of us, dolphins are just the most beautiful, romantic, majestic creatures, and for us, for me to go and sit and train dolphins, I think would be a dream job. However, if you think about it, training dolphins becomes as just familiar and automatic to the dolphin trainers as our jobs become to us. So those dolphin trainers are mindlessly doing their job, getting the dolphins through their tricks. And what Ellen Langer and her team do is they come and they divide these dolphin trainers into two separate groups. The first group, she tells them, I would like you to notice what is unique about your dolphin every time you engage with it. In other words, she's making them mindful about connecting with the dolphins. The other group, she says nothing, they do their job as they always do. And what Ellen Langer and her team discovered is that those dolphins that are in the mindfulness group, okay, they jump higher, swim faster, and most importantly, they come more often of their own accord towards the dolphin trainers. Okay, now you can extrapolate that to your relationships. Okay, if you're mindful, if you're present with the people that you're engaging with your children, with your staff, with your partners, when you're mindful, it draws that person to you and you become closer, more connected. That person performs better. Thinking of us as coaches, okay, is that relationship that is built when you're present. People know when you're present and they know when you're not. So this is just one example of let's be intentional about how we are present with people. And I'd just like you to think about a couple of questions. These are just for yourself to reflect on. Is think of a character trait that you have that you believe is negative. Okay, so I guess I think something for me that I think is negative is that I am I get lost in my own world of academics where I totally forget about all the humans around me, okay? And now reframe it into seeing in what way is that negative characteristic negative, I'm putting in inverted commas, in what way is it a positive characteristic? In what way is it a strength? So I can see my intense focus where I lose contact with the real world actually is a strength for me because it allows me to fully focus, to study, to do the kind of work that I do. So Ellen Langer talks about be intentional about how you see yourself and how you see about your other people and reframe your world. Another example is I had a client who she wanted to exercise and she hated exercise and she just could never motivate herself to do it. And what we did is we created a reframe to see how can you see your daily life as exercise. So she started to see that when she was sweeping the floor, how can I perceive that as exercise? When I'm walking to my car, how can I perceive that as exercise? All she did was reframe her concept of exercise. And suddenly she actually became fitter, she became healthier, and she started to get more motivated to do more. So this is about being intentional about how do I see the world instead of just framing the world on automatic. Okay. And I think another question, and it goes back to our visualization in a sense, another question that I would have for everybody to take out from here is how can you consciously and intentionally decide how you can be the best version of yourself through 2020? What do you want to be remembered for? Who do you want to be? And that is our job as coaches. Our job as coaches is to help people become intentional, become purposeful about how they show up in the world. And I think this is the opportunity for us to decide, are we going to walk out of this in 2021 or what are we going to look back in 2030? And what are we going to be saying about ourselves? How can we be intentional about how we're moving forward in the difficult times? Okay, so intentionality for me is almost about being pre-mindful. Okay, it's deciding before anything, before I actually go into my world, before I walk into that meeting, before I sit down with my family to have dinner, how am I going to be in that situation? So that is the intentionality aspect of my model of mindfulness. The third aspect, and I can see somebody mentioned Eckhart Tolle there, and of course, very much our idea of consciousness is strongly connected to Eckhart Tolle's concept of the power of now, the power of being in the moment. Now, interestingly enough, I went on meditation retreat in California with Eckhart Tolle, and he's as powerful, well, probably 1,000 times more powerful in person even than his books, but he doesn't like the word mindfulness. So remember I said to you earlier that a lot of people they say the word mindfulness is saying that the mind is full. but I'm using the word mindfulness as opposed to mindlessness. Okay, but Eckhart Tolle talks about the power of the present, the power of now, living in the present moment without attachment to an ego identity. Okay, I've used the word consciousness here, although I know we can interchange the words mindfulness, consciousness, presence. They in a sense are interchangeable. So what this aspect of mindfulness is about how do we rise above that narrative that we have about ourselves and who we are in the world. And going back to that very early question that somebody asked about social constructs, this is what I was talking about. When our thinking is mostly it's a manifestation of the conditioned narrative that we have that emerges from our entire life experiences. It emerges from the kind of parenting that we have. It emerges from the education. It emerges from our culture, religions, language, social perceptions. We create this story about ourselves, okay, which is just a story. Okay, and often it's centered in a negative narrative, because remember, our brain pays much more attention to what is negative than what is positive. So often those conditioned experiences that have been where we've been told we're not good enough, or we've been told we're not smart, or we've been told that we're not important, or not only told it, but we've experienced it. Or our culture has said a woman cannot be powerful, or a man must not show emotions. That said that you're good or you're bad, or you're rich or you're poor. All of those are merely stories that have been created. And we take on those stories and they become the I. It becomes the self. Now, people like Deepak Chopra, I see somebody's commenting, people like Eckhart Tolle, Krishnamurti, Thich Nhat Hanh, they all talk about that non-dualistic. How do we get into that, the essence of ourselves, our spiritual self, which is not contained and not attached to this identity that we've created? This is not this defensive, repetitive I that's always gathering evidence for how right I am or how good I am. Instead of getting out of that story and just going into that pure consciousness, that energy life force that we have, that is a place of presence. That is a place of peace. We use the words in mindfulness of attachment, the opposite of attachment, of acceptance. We use the word surrender. We use the word allow, embrace. And this is a space where we can be present without a story around what is happening, where something negative might happen, but instead of labeling it as negative, we just are in the experience. This is about embracing joy. This is about embracing suffering, because it is what it is. Life is hard. We have challenges. Can you imagine life as a movie and there's no challenges? Imagine a movie where there's no challenges. How boring would that movie be? And it's not real. Okay, so life is full of suffering. Life is full of difficulties as well as joy and pleasure. But instead of telling stories about it and trying to change what is, this aspect of consciousness is about being present with what is. And I didn't manifest this right now, but just connecting to what a lot of people are saying in the chat room is Krishnamurti, who's an Indian philosopher. He really spoke about himself personally, but towards the end of his life, he made this profound statement. He said, the secret that I have to happiness, the secret I have to my well-being, is I don't mind what happens. I mean, such a simple sentence, but such a powerful sentence. There is no mind. There is no narrative. I just am, and I'm present. And again, one of what is considered to be one of the gurus of spiritual development in the Western world, Eckhart Tolle, says this wonderful, wonderful quote: life will give you whatever experience that you are having for the evolution of your consciousness. And how do you know that this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you're having at the moment. And if we can bring that kind of thinking to our coachees, where we're we're helping them be present with whatever difficulty or challenge or experience it is that they're having, and not having to escape from it. But how do you be the best version of yourselves? How do you be in the essence of your goodness, not in that limiting narrative that we've created? So a question that I have for you, and this is our fourth poll, Anne, is what are the conditioned beliefs that you have that limit you from being the best version of yourself? What are those beliefs that you have that limit you from being the best version of yourself? So I think we're going to get a poll up. So these are things what I come across in my coaching where people limit themselves by saying, I'm not good enough, or I have to be responsible. One of the biggest ones I'm experiencing, I have to be perfect. I don't deserve. Yes, I fear failure. I'm not good enough. There we go. See, that's so often. Everyone else is better than me. And this is insane, but this is how we wire ourselves, because this is what our society does. We don't experience unconditional positive regard, pure great. See, we don't see the greatness of ourselves. What we're taught to do is to look at how we are not good enough, how we're not worthy. Look at that. I should be frightened of my own power. I've got goosebumps as I read that. I lack imagination. I'm lost. Now remember the reframe. These stories that we tell ourselves, the equal and opposite is actually the truth. These are just stories. When you go into the pure essence of your wisdom, of your power, of your purpose, none of these are true. They are merely conditioned beliefs. And a lot of the work that we do as coaches is to get people to identify and see what is that conditioned belief, what is that narrative that you've created, and how do we shift that narrative by getting into our truth, into our purpose, and into our power. Sure, these are very powerful and quite heartbreaking in some sense, but also liberating, because when we can see this and we can access it, then we can choose to shift it. And that's, I think, what mindfulness allows us to do. Okay, so we go back to sharing my screen. I think the simple message from this here is, don't choose to be right, choose to be happy. Okay, good. So essentially what we've done up to this point is we've engaged with all these aspects of my mindfulness model that shows us that mindfulness is much more than just meditation. It's much more than just awareness. It's much more than just surrender, but it actually engages with so many aspects of doing, being, of our thinking, of our spiritual experience. All these aspects, if we embrace all of them, we start to live in a way that is more mindful and more conscious. So what I would like to do now is I'd like to shift into using mindfulness in our coaching practice. So as coaches, how do we engage with mindfulness? And we decided that on this call, because we are in alignment with the ICF, this is an ICF conference, we're going to be talking particularly about the ICF competency of coaching presence. So there's lots of ways you can bring mindfulness to your coaching. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time. We can teach our coaches mindfulness. We can teach them meditation. We can ask mindfulness questions to get them to become present, to reframe their experiences. We'll talk about that. We can use mindfulness meditation as a technique to clear our own space before the session, okay, or to clear the space for ourselves after the session so that we can go into the rest of the world. I know a lot of coaches who do a mindfulness, a 2 or 3 or 5 minute mindfulness meditation with their coaches at the beginning of a session to help both become present. We can use mindfulness as a way of understanding our emotions, helping our coachees understand their emotions, of managing our own emotions, separating ourselves from that emotional space when we move out into the world and it's not useful for us to take those emotions with us. So there's many, many, many different ways of engaging our mindfulness practices. But I'm going to connect it here particularly to the competency of coaching presence. So what is the superpower that we have, the mindfulness superpower that we have in coaching presence? Okay, and this is firstly, it's not about necessarily meditating with our coachees, or like I've said, you can do that if you wish, but it's actually more about how are we present with our coachees. And we, in terms of honoring this ICF competency of coaching presence, and by the way, we're talking about coaching here, but I know there's a lot of people on this call that are not coaches as well, that this is about how do we create presence when we are in relationship to other people. Most people will identify their core purpose as something to do with having impact, as something to do with supporting others or making a difference in people's lives. So whatever it is we're doing, whether it's the actual practical coaching engagement, or whether it's merely having a connection with another human being, this is how we need to be present in those relationships. And the first one is being flexible, focused, and responsive within the session. If we have trained our brain in mindfulness, we have the ability to be skillful, to be adaptive, to be in that moment with the coachee and not still worrying about what they've said 5 minutes before or what we're going to be doing 10 minutes after the session, okay? That we need as coaches, and this is an absolute essential aspect of master coaching, is you need to be able to adapt in that conversation to whatever the coachee's need is, as well as aligning that coachee to themselves and their own sense of possibility. And we talk about being connected to the whole of the client. A master coach does not only listen to the words that the coachee uses. When we are mindfully present, we are attuned. We are able to feel the energetic transfer that we're experiencing. And I know that sounds romantic and perhaps a little weird for some people, but literally we have a sense of energy vibration. And even when we're with our loved ones or when we're with our colleagues at work, if we can become attuned to that energetic vibration, we start to understand and feel people in a completely different way. We're attuned to what our coachee is saying and what they're not saying. We are attuned to their emotions. We're attuned to their body language. We're attuned to their tone of voice. We're attuned to the style of language, the patterns that they are inhabiting in their way of being and their way of speaking. So there's a holistic aspect to it that mindfulness allows us. We've developed our own mindfulness capacity. It helps us to connect to the whole of the clients and then bring our clients' attention to the whole of their being, to help them connect to their emotional states. We can say to our coaches, I see that you swallowed deeply when you started discussing that person. Or I noticed a light film of moisture come into your eyes when you reflected on that aspect of your whatever. So our job is to help our coachees as well become connected to the whole of themselves. Okay. My Ellen Langer aspect, helping the client reframe or shift perspective. We all know as coaches, this is one of the most powerful superpowers that we have, is how can we see this difficult experience as a learning opportunity? How can we grow during the COVID-19? What is the opportunity that is being presented to us? Now, this is not about being glass is half full, everything's going to be okay in the end, light at the end of the time. I'm not talking about that, because we are realistic as coaches, but the only thing we have the capacity to be in control of is our own thinking. And that's our job, is to help our coaches be in control of their thinking. So help them to shift the perspective to a more constructive and a more productive way of being, while engaging and being comfortable with difficulty. Because remember, it's about being present with pain. It's about being present with suffering that allows us to process it. When we deny it, when we avoid it, when we run away from it, then we don't have the capacity to learn and grow from it. We talk in master coaching about being intuitive. And this is not only about ourselves being intuitive, but help our coachees become intuitive. Help them listen to their inner essence. Help them listen to that part of themselves that actually knows the answer. One of the most powerful coaching questions, when we're faced with a coachee who's got a dilemma or they've got to make a decision, I'll say to my coachee, take away all the thoughts. Okay, just allow that to disappear. Now, in this second, in this moment, what is the answer? And my coachee will come up with the answer. So it's helping them to to access their own intuition. And us as coaches need to be attuned to our own intuition. Remember, intuition is not necessarily some weird spiritual message that's coming from the grave, that's coming to tell you what is actually going on. But intuition, from a neuroscience perspective, it's the deep subconscious and unconscious knowledge that we've crafted and created and learned through our lifetimes that we need to learn to be able to access. So intuition is something that we offer to our coaches, and we offer it openly. We offer it without attachment when we sense that something is happening. It's a very powerful relationship skill when we help become intuitive and present to the people that we love. And we say, I'm sensing that there's something difficult here for you. I'm sensing that you're not really feeling that you want to move forward. Help be intuitive within your relationships. Of course, we talk about being confident with strong emotions. Humans are emotional beings. Asking us not to be is like denying our human and nothing wrong with our emotions are merely messages for what we're experiencing. So we as coaches are curious about emotions. We connect to emotions, both our own and the coaches. But where we're confident in managing strong emotions is we don't need to be attached to our client's emotion. That is their experience, okay? And it's the gift that you give to your coachee to be empathic, to be able to be present with deep emotional states, but not take it on ourselves, because it's their opportunity to learn and grow in wisdom and knowledge. We engage in, I love the word curiosity. I always talk about the curiosity of a coach and courageousness. You know, we need to challenge our coaches. We need to challenge ourselves, and we do it in a light and respectful way. I love that the competency aspect of humor and lightness. And I think as coaches, we can become really heavy and serious and think we've got to do this perfect job. But when we're mindful, we're human. I mean, mindfulness, often many researchers in mindfulness talk about the beginner's mind. John Kabat-Zinn talks about the beginner's mind. Many mindfulness practitioners talk about being childlike. So let's bring that play and that humor and that lightness into our coaching experiences. Of course, as coaches, we need to learn to be non-judgmental, but not only of our coaches, but also of ourselves. You know, it's okay to not know. It's okay to not have the perfect question, or to facilitate a massive change in one 15-minute coaching session. It's about being open and allowing what needs to occur. The mere fact that you're giving mindful attention and presence to a human being for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 1 hour is one of the greatest gifts that we have as coaches, without all the skill and the art of great questions, which are obviously wonderful within themselves. And then I always like to talk about the use of silence and kindness and that gift that we're giving to people. Sometimes within the silence is the greatest wisdom, because that's when we allow our coaches to be mindful and to access their intuition, to access their subconscious and unconscious wisdom. We talk in master coaching about, in psychology, they talk about unconditional positive regard. In master coaching, we talk about adoring your clients. And I just love that. When we can come from that very present, mindful perspective, that our clients, you don't get that kind of relationship. And it's our job as a coach is to believe in a person, to believe in their inner wisdom and their inner possibility and what they're capable of, and to believe that they have the capacity to achieve whatever it is they want to achieve. Because I know from neuroplasticity that people do have the capacity to achieve whatever it is they want to achieve. So Anne, that's a run and a race through coaching presence. I see I've only got a few more minutes. I did promise you that I would do a poll to check in with everyone on what is your coaching presence superpower, okay? That is a Photoshop picture on the right. I promise you I don't dress like that, although maybe I wouldn't mind.
That's really cool.
Thank you. So what is your coaching presence superpower? This is the last poll that we're doing. Okay. I love this humor. I'm so glad that coaches are being humorous and light, because so many of us take it so seriously. Intuitive, beautiful. And I definitely think our trust in our own intuition grows the longer and the more we coach.
And the zero for ability to focus. Sounds like me multitasking.
And I think it's really, it's the gift we give ourselves, and is to actually train our minds to be able to focus in the session, because then it becomes the gift that we then give our clients. Yeah. Present and flexible, adaptable. I love that. I'm still loving that intuition is so strong. I didn't think it would be. So thanks. I love that kindness Chris is saying in the, I love that. Kindness, unconditional positive regard. It's a gift that we give our coachees. Okay, great. And we're going to have the results of all of these afterwards as well. And love for my clients, Anita says. That's fantastic. Okay, so it's been a great privilege to share with you. And I think just to complete, and I did say to you that I would share just part of my story briefly.
Yes, please. I think that would be very inspirational.
Thank you. I think everyone can hear how passionate I am about mindfulness, how passionate I am about neuroscience, how passionate I am about coaching. And I think it's because I've really walked the walk. And I only discovered coaching 14 years ago. I was turning 40 and I lived a very different life. I'd had a very, many people have had the same kind of difficulties, but I've gone through so many difficult life experiences. I'd experienced infertility. I'd experienced the loss of loved ones. I'd experienced adoption. I'd experienced divorce and mental illness and family members with suicide and physical disability. I'd gone through many of life's challenges, resisting them, I might add, deeply resisting them and feeling sorry for myself and feeling like I wasn't good enough and I couldn't change, and I was just destined for this life of terrible things happening. And I truly lacked self-awareness. I truly lacked self-esteem. I was overweight. I had bad health habits, smoking. I was directionless. I didn't do any exercise or sport. I didn't honor my health. I didn't honor my well-being. And I discovered in 2005, I discovered coaching. And coaching led me to the discovery of neuroscience, and it led me to the discovery of mindfulness. And truly, when I started engaging in these aspects of myself, it allowed me to transform myself to be this person who would never have sat in front of a screen and spoken to one person, never mind well over 100. Okay, and it's this mindfulness and coaching and neuroscience that has given me the capacity to shift my life profoundly, to become an athlete, to become confident. And yes, I still struggle. Yes, I have to work on this. I have to practice it every day of my life. But that's the gift that I have, is that I've had to do the struggle in order to be convincing, or to be able to share what it is that I do and who I am with my coachees. So if anybody would like, I've written a lot about mindfulness. I haven't got a word for word transcript because I was fairly spontaneous in the session, but I've written about all of this. If anybody wants the writing of it, you can just send me an email. I can't promise to get it to you within the next week, but definitely within the next couple of weeks. So yes, Anne, if anyone wants this, I'm very happy to share it. And if any other resources, because I've got massive tons of resources.
Maybe Dr. Colleen, you can send that on to me, and when we send the email out to all the participants, we could include that as well. And then also your suggestion to provide some interesting titles for the team to consider on mindfulness.
Good. Good.
Do we have any more questions from anyone? And wow, lots of beautiful comments. Dr. Colleen, you can read. Oh, there's also Linda from South Africa, and lots of aha moments. Great sharing, awesome session, very inspiring. Love your openness, authenticity, and passion. Thanks so much for sharing your story. Excellent session, amazing impact. Wow, and it just goes on. So thank you so much for sharing. It's been very inspirational, and I think a lot of times we all struggle with the understanding of mindfulness because of the English language of the mind, and also because of its deep tradition in both the Western and Eastern culture on how people perceive it. I myself would like to explore how to be more focused and why being multitasking is not really possible. So I think that might be my next project. So I'd like to say a big thank you for sharing your time and being awake since 7 a.m. just to support us for the International Coaching Week. So for everyone on the call, I'm just gonna run through some of the updates from the sponsors, and stay tuned because we're gonna be sharing with you how to get your CCEU codes and what other things are upcoming. So a very quick piece. Actually, before you guys run off, I forgot it this morning. So maybe can I invite all of you, before I do the sponsor credits, to come on to your photos. So we're gonna take a quick picture, and I'll ask our Zoom engineer to help us take a picture. So we're gonna put in let me just put up Dr. Colleen's slide, and then we're gonna put into gallery mode. So everybody just do either I or C or W, and we're gonna start taking the pictures. Great. So
okay,
Adrian.
hold on.
Oh, Lynn.
Yeah, all right. Okay, just hold it for 5 seconds, okay, everybody? Going through all the screens. Oh God, hold on. All right, keep it there. Okay, sorry guys, hold on a bit.
Don't worry, Lynn, I got it.
So you can change
ICW.
Yes.
Don't worry, Lynn, I've got it. I'm
Okay.
taking care of it. Don't worry. Just hold your poses there. We'll get to you.
All right, I've got it, Adrian. Good.
Okay, wonderful. So let me stop sharing. Come back to the
Thank you.
Yeah, just give me a minute. I'll just acknowledge our wonderful sponsors for making this possible. Don't want to miss that.
Suan is ready to applaud already.
We missed all the beautiful faces this morning. All right, that's great. So again, thank you everyone for joining. I know some of you guys joined halfway through. So anyone that has joined us today, you get a free gift pack from Imagenetics. As you know, they are an organization that helps people and organizations improve communication, collaboration, and culture. So you get a personal profile report on your own thinking and behavior. It's very apt now that we talk about how our brain works, and you'll be able to make connections through the app and also attend a very special seminar. So this is all worth $350. Really very beautiful gift for all of you, and also having a coach in your pocket to go with you wherever you need it for your own personal development. We have the coaching app, and we've also thanked Starting Point for providing the DIS certifications, 5 behavior and building trust solutions, and also the coach partnership for bringing coaching programs together with Newfield from 1991 to 65,000 graduates. So we thank all the sponsors for supporting us. So what's going to happen next is we'll have a short 15 minutes breakout. That's really for us to do networking. And as you know, building the whole coaching community is really about us getting to know one another and supporting one another along the way. So do join us for the breakout session. And coming up at 6 o'clock will be another mindfulness session by Jacqueline Leong. And you get to really put this into practice. And exactly what Dr. Colleen was talking about was about how mindfulness and all this scientific explanation of the brain and neuroscience can help us to build our coaching presence. And so the one that follows will be the subconscious connection, listening with an empty mind, presented by Tony Latimer. And he will give you, all of us, the practical tips on how do we use that now and how we can tap into that subconscious part of our brain, and how when we're interacting with a coachee, we could have that openness, that human connection to be able to build that coaching presence. So do join us again at 6:30. And if you haven't signed up, the registration will be typed into the chat box. So please do continue to register for the events. Thank you, Adrian. Beautiful. And on the right is the CCEU that I mentioned. So all of you who are ICF members, you can scan this QR code. And also in the meantime, Adrian will be so sweet to type in the URL if you can't scan the code. So when you get in there, fill in your feedback form. Beautiful. Fill in your feedback form. And this is the way that you can get your credits. They will be emailed to you in the next month. So this is wonderful. We're just going to pause here because I know that some of us need to quickly take care of that code. We're just going to pause for a moment. And as we're pausing, while everyone's doing the CCEU code, I'm just going to share some of the comments from the chat. It's beautiful. This Sari says the session is inspirational. Dr. Colleen, thank you for sharing. From Serene, authentic and straight from the heart. From James Campbell. And again, Emmeline Ang, you're so inspiring. Dr. Colleen, great story to end. From Clement and Hango from Vietnam. Wow, we've got people from everywhere in the world. Thank you for sharing your story. I feel so lucky I discovered coaching too. From Vivian, it's so enlightening. Lots of thank you. Authentic from the heart and the mind. Wow. So it's been a really awesome session. And thank you for your energy and all that. So in your breakout, which will be popping up on your screen, please join in. And after the breakout, do come back to the main session and we'll have a surprise for you at the main session. Enjoy your feedback and networking.